Shabbos Daf Chavav can be divided into two parts. The first part is a continuing discussion about which fuels may be used for Shabbos candles. It discusses tevel, which is tameh. It discusses white kerosene, and it discusses several other types of oil. The Gemara brings down several baraisas on the subject. Then the Gemara moves on from there to a discussion of what type of cloth can become tameh. And the Gemara will be interested to know what size cloth and what material cloth and what combination of the two factors can or cannot become tameh, and that is a lengthy discussion which will continue into the next daf. Now we're going to start from several lines down in the daf because we did the first few lines as part of Daf Chaf Hey. The Gemara begins by quoting a brayso which lists two more types of fuel which may not be used for the Shabbos candles. It discusses tevel oil, which is tameh, and it also discusses white kerosene. Now, tevel oil refers to oil from which truma was never separated. The halacha is that any type of a produce from which truma was not separated is forbidden for anybody to eat. It's also forbidden for anybody to derive any type of benefit or hana. It cannot be even used to burn for fuel. Now, therefore, the Gemara says, the Brisa says, it's forbidden to use it to light candles even during the week, and certainly it's forbidden on Shabbos, and it's also forbidden if it's tameh. Now, white kerosene is forbidden, the Gemara says, because it has highly flammable vapors which can combust and set the whole house on fire. But the Gemara wants to know, what is the reason that a tevel cannot be used for fuel? How do you know that tevel is asur b'hana? So the Gemara quotes a pasuk which says, So I have given to you to safeguard my truma, my two trumas. We had this in yesterday's daf. And it tells you that I've given it to you when there are two trumas that I have given to you. Truma tahar and truma tameh. Truma tahar you can use to eat, and truma tameh you can use to burn. Kohanim, anyway. But before I've given it to you, meaning when it's tevel, before truma is taken from it, both of these are forbidden. Truma tahira is forbidden to eat, and tevel tahira is forbidden to eat, and tevel tameya is forbidden to burn, and certainly to eat. The Gemara now quotes another brayso which lists a number of different fuels which may not be used. It's very similar to Mishnayos, which we have seen and will be seeing shortly. And this brayso contains a number of different statements from various Tanaim. So it says as follows. Rav Shimon ben Elazar says you're not allowed to use tsari oil. That's the shemen afarasimayim, the good smelling oil, which we said before is highly flammable. Rav Shimon ben Elazar also would say that you can't use it for another reason because it's made from trees. And Rabbi Shmuel says you're not allowed to use anything which is made from a tree. Anything which is made from a tree is too thick, it's like tar, and it's not drawn well by the wicks, and therefore you cannot use it to light Shabbos candles. Now Rabbi Shmuel ben Breka says you're only allowed to use things which come from a fruit. Rabbi Tarfon says not only fruits, you're only allowed to use things which come from olives, only olive oil. Now the Brisa says, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri stood on his feet and said, how could you say that? How could you say you're only allowed to use olive oil? What are people who live in Bavel supposed to do that they only have sesame oil? What are people who live in Madai supposed to do? They only have nut oil. People live in Alexandria only have radish oil. People live in Kapotkia only have kerosene. They don't have any of these. What are they supposed to do? So obviously you're wrong. And the halacha is that you're allowed to use anything which it doesn't say specifically in the Mishnah you're not allowed to use. You're even allowed to use fish oil. You're even allowed to use itron, although that it says specifically in the Mishnah you're not allowed to use. Now Rav Shimon Shazuri says you're allowed to use oil made from watermelon seeds, and you're allowed to use kerosene. And Sumcha says you're not allowed to use anything made from flesh, from meat of animals, except for dissolved fish parts or fish oil. So now the Gemara says, now Sumchas here comes out the same as Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Both of them say that you're not allowed to use anything made from flesh, because the only thing that's made from flesh is chaylev, made from fats. And the Mishnah says you're not allowed to use that. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said you're not allowed to use anything that the Mishnah says you're not allowed to use. So Sumchas and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri are both saying you're not allowed to use chaylev fats, and they both say that you're allowed to use fish oil. So it's the same. Versus the difference is the halacha Rav Bruna, which we saw earlier. The Rav Bruna holds that you're allowed to add a little bit of regular oil to melted fats and use that to light. So both of these Tanaim agree that you're allowed to use fish oil, and they both hold that you're not allowed to use chaylev, you're not allowed to use fats, but one says you're allowed to use fats with a little bit of oil mixed in, and the Gemara says we do not know which is the one that says you're allowed to use that. They did not complete the the statement. The Gemara now launches into a discussion which is completely unrelated to the subject of lighting candles. The only connection is that we just learned a brisa that used the expression anything which comes from a tree, and now we're about to use another brisa that begins with the expression anything that comes from a tree. The topic over here is what type of cloth can become tamei and what type of cloth is impervious to tumah. Now there are two factors which contribute to whether a cloth can become tamei or not. Number one, it has to be a minimum size. The two significant sizes are 3 fingers by 3 fingers wide, or 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim wide. We'll see which ones can become tamei or not. Now the other thing is what material is this cloth made of? So we begin with a brisa, which is Rav Shimon ben Elazar speaking, who says that anything which comes from a tree cannot become tamei, even if it's 3 fingers by 3 fingers wide, except for flax. Now this statement pretty much means that any type of cloth cannot become tamei, except for flax and wool. Only flax and wool can become tamei. All other types of materials are made from trees. So therefore, pretty much, what Rav Shimon ben Elazar is saying is that if you have a cloth which is 3 fingers by 3 fingers, it cannot become tamei unless it's made out of flax or wool. So the Gemara says, Abaye says that this is very similar to another statement which we saw from Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel. Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel also said anything cannot become tamei unless it is made out of flax or wool. How do you know that? So Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel gives a source for it. The Torah describes clothing with the word begadim. When it's discussing taras, it uses the word begadim. Clothing which is called begadim, can have taras on it and become tamei. And then later it says specifically tzemer upishtim, flax and wool. So we have what's called a klal uprat. First it uses the general term clothing, and then it says specifically flax and wool. The rule is whenever you have a general and then a specific, the specific is defining the general. The only type of cloth which can become tamei through taras is flax and wool. So that's very similar to what we just saw from Shimon ben Elazar. The only type of cloth which can become tamei is flax and wool, nothing else. The Gemara says that Rava disagrees with Abaye. Rava says it's not exactly the same, there is a difference. This statement of Rav Shimon ben Elazar was talking about 3 fingers wide. The statement of Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel did not give a size. So the machlokes between them will be in something which is 3 tfachim wide by 3 tfachim wide. On that, Rav Shimon ben Elazar will hold that the tumah is not limited to flax and wool. Any cloth that size can become tamei, as long as it's made from trees. And the Tana Debei Rishon will disagree, and it will say no, only flax and wool. So again, the machlokes which we now have according to Rava is a garment which is 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim wide. Can it become tamei or not? According to Rav Shimon ben Elazar, any garment can, and according to Tana Debei Rishon, it's got to be made out of flax and wool. Now, the Gemara observes that everybody agrees, both Abaye and Rava, according to Rav Shimon ben Elazar, and according to Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, everyone agrees that if you have cloth made out of wool or flax, which measures 3 fingers by 3 fingers, it can become tamei through taras. And the Gemara wants to know how we know this. Let's review briefly the factors involved in making cloth tamei before we dig into this discussion. There are 2 factors. First of all, what material is the cloth made out of? If wool and flax is far more likely to be able to become tamei than other materials. The second factor is how big it is. The larger the cloth is, the more functional it is, the more likely it is to become a tamei. So if it's 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim, that's a good factor for becoming tamei. If it's only 3 fingers by 3 fingers, it is much less functional and much less likely to become tamei. So a cloth that has both factors pointing towards tumah is one made out of wool and flax, which is 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim. The one which is least likely to become tamei is one which is too small. It's only 3 fingers by 3 fingers, and it is of the wrong material. It's some other material other than wool and flax. The 2 types of cloth that have one factor going towards tumah, one factor against tumah, would be wool and flax. It's only 3 fingers by 3 fingers, or other materials, which is 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim. Now the Gemara says, but it's clear here that everybody agrees that wool and flax, measuring 3 fingers by 3 fingers, although it's a middle level, it has one factor going for it towards tumah, namely that it's made out of wool and flax, and one factor against tumah, which is that it is only 3 fingers by 3 fingers. Everybody seems to agree that this can become tamei. So the Gemara says, how do you know that? Gemara says because in the psukim which describe tzaras, when it says that clothing can become tummy, it says viha beged, extra vav and hey. That's to teach you to include this cloth, which is wool and flax, but it's only 3 fingers by 3 fingers. So Gemara says, well, how do you know that that's what it's coming to include? Maybe it's coming to include where it's wool and flax, but it's 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, and not larger. The Gemara says, no, that I don't need a pasuk to teach me that. That's obvious. That has both factors pointing towards Tama. It's wool and flax, and it's 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says that's what the pasuk was referring to when it said cloth. I can learn that from the fact that the Torah even says that if you just have a weave going one direction, you have only the vertical threads or only the horizontal threads, that can become a tummy. So this cloth can certainly become the tummy. The Gemara says, well, if that's true, that you can learn that kal v'chomer from the one-way weave, so then you should apply that to a garment which is only 3 fingers by 3 fingers. That's also bigger and more important. That's also more important than something that's only a one-way weave. The Gemara says, no. The fact that the Torah says a one-way weave can become tummy does not mean that 3 fingers by 3 fingers can become a tummy. A wealthy person would save a one-way weave because he can weave it fully the other way and make a real cloth out of it. But a scrap, which is only 3 fingers by 3 fingers, he'll throw out, so it's less functional. Therefore, you cannot learn from one-way weave to 3 fingers by 3 fingers. However, you could learn from one-way weave to the case of 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. Therefore, 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, I don't need a pasuk for. I can learn that from kal v'chomer from one-way weave. What do I need a pasuk for? 3 fingers by 3 fingers. For that, I have the extra viha in the word viha beged. Okay, the Gemara says I'll accept that. However, how do you know that it should be referring to the case of wool and flax that are 3 fingers by 3 fingers, which has 1 factor towards tumah, 1 factor away from tumah? Maybe it's referring to the other case, which has 1 factor and 1 factor, which is the case of other cloths, which is 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. So the Gemara says, how can you say that? The Torah right after it says the word viha beged clearly says tzemer upishtim. It's got to be made of wool and linen, not other materials. So how could the viha be coming to include other materials? And right after that it says only wool and flax. So where it says, well, maybe it's coming, when it says wool and flax, it's coming to exclude really small materials, really small cloths made of other materials, ones that have both factors going against it. It's made out of other materials, and it's only 3 fingers by 3 fingers. But if it's larger, 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, even though it's made out of other materials, maybe that's not excluded. So Gemara says no, because there are 2 exclusions. It says tzemer beged, tzemer oy beged pishtim. It excludes twice. It says only wool and only flax. That's coming to include 2 things. So it's coming to exclude small garments made out of other materials that are only 3 fingers by 3 fingers, and it's coming to exclude 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim garments made out of other materials. Therefore, you could only include ones that are made out of wool and flax, and the inclusion is to teach you that even if they're really small, only 3 fingers by 3 fingers, they can still be mekabel tumas tzaras. Okay, the Gemara accepts that, but the Gemara now asks, hold on a second. Earlier, we had the opinion of Rava, who held that the subject of cloths made of other materials, not wool and flax, which are large, 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, that's a machlokes, according to Rava, between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar holds they are makabel tumah. So Gemara says, but according to what you just told me, those cloths are fully excluded of any size. So how does Rava know that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar would say that they are makabel tumah if they are 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim? My answer is because he has another pasuk to include it. It says oy beged, an extra word oy, or clothing. This is talking about the tumah of a sheretz, and we even have a brisa that spells it out. It says that you can learn out of the extra word oy by tumah sheretz to include anything of other materials, which is 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim.